Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. I'm doing the next in series on my Trump immigration series to better educate the public, to let you know what can and can't be done and what some of the issues are. Now, I've done probably 2 to 3 so far, and I'd like to make just a few introductory comments. In the last week and a half, I've gotten about 50,000 views. Of that, the comments, some have been very positive, some have been neutral, some have been um, opposing, but have been essentially, educated opposition, which, gives their point of view, which is fine. And then there's a very small percentage, probably 15 or so comments on the 50,000 views that are just um, off to left field with total, absolute racism. And it's interesting to me that the small little part here, the small little comments that deal with this racism, the typical comments will not be able to go more than 2 or 3 words without using a cuss word. They try to insult, they try to demean, they try to show their superiority, and they try to intimidate. And so I can imagine that as an immigrant running up against one of these types of people, they might feel fear to fight their case and to do what is necessary in the United States under the laws in order to protect themselves. But I'm here to tell you, again, just if you look at the statistics here, and I took 3 semesters of statistics in college. So if you look at the statistics of just the last week on just my videos, it's an incredibly small portion of these, incredibly racist people that, try to use foul language and intimidation to essentially stop the due process rights and the ability of people to fight for themselves. And I'm here to tell you, don't let them intimidate you. Don't let them hide the fact that you do have rights. Now, let me give an example. Now, we had spoken on the other videos about how you can fight your immigration case, and then we got to the point where the notice to appear was issued, and how you can deny and or admit various allegations on the notice to appear. And then it comes to a point where, let's say that the judge determines that you are removable. Okay, that means that if nothing else happened and if there were no other laws in the United States, that once the judge would determine you're removable, you would be removed from the United States. But the laws don't allow and permit the moment that you are found removable in an immigration court to be deported and or removed. Okay, the laws, the United States laws passed by Congress, do not allow that. It doesn't mean that it won't happen, and it doesn't mean there's not cases where it does happen. But if you're in immigration court and after you've pled to the notice to appear, meaning your attorney has pled to the notice to appear, and the judge either sustains or disagrees, whatever, with the objections, and finds you to be removable, the next question the judge asks the attorney is, okay, what relief are you seeking? Okay, that by itself indicates that even when someone is found to be removable, there there is immigration relief available under the law for them to be able to apply for. And that's when the attorney will go, depending on the case, go, oh, well, possibly asylum, convention against torture, withholding of removal, adjustment of status, possibly registry, cancellation of removal for lawful permanent residents, cancellation of removal for non-permanent residents, depending on when it was filed, suspension of deportation, different kinds of waivers, prosecutorial discretion, and those are the ones that just come, right at the top. There's more. Now, you have to ask yourself if the laws in the United States, um, again, passed by Congress, signed by the president, allow for all these different forms of relief, do they simply, and they being Congress, do they simply want to take the people and deport them out of the U.S.? And the answer is no. So when I get some of these comments that say the person's illegal, they need to leave the country, that's the law. Well, it's not exactly the law. If they're illegal and they fight their case, the law allows them to fight and to apply for all kinds of relief in order to try to stay here. Okay, that's the law. Now, they have what are called waivers. And what are waivers? What is a waiver? A waiver is when someone has committed a crime or someone is inadmissible for some reason or another, and the waiver essentially says, okay, if you show this and show that, and you submit this kind of documentation, then a decision will be made whether to waive or forget about your inadmissibility and still let you in. So then another question arises is if the law just said deport everybody who was not here legally or just deport anyone who committed a crime, then there wouldn't have been waivers. So, some of these comments that essentially go to the crime portion say, well, okay, fine. If they committed a crime, get them out of the United States. Okay, if that were the case and it were so easy, then there would be no waivers in the Immigration and Nationality Act. There would be no ability for people to try to essentially submit under the law the legal brief and declarations and affidavits and evidence in order to try to apply for these waivers. So again, if we're talking, for example, about crimes, some of the comments are very, very crass insofar as they say anyone who's committed a crime who is not here legally needs to be kicked out. Well, let's think about that for a minute. Let's say somebody goes into a store and steals a pack of gum, and they get a charge for petty theft, and they get no time in jail. They get a $50 fine, and that's the end of it. Okay. Now let's say somebody rapes somebody, let's say someone rapes a minor. Okay. Um, are are you saying, and I'm referring this to those people who think that every single crime that anybody commits should mandatorily require people to be deported? Do you think that the person who stole the pack of gum should be put in the same category as the person who raped a minor? And the answer is obviously no. That would be ludicrous. Okay, so the immigration laws also designate different kinds of crimes as to what makes someone inadmissible, different levels of crimes. It allows waivers on different kinds of crimes as well. Some crimes you can't waive, some crimes you can. And it's not as simple as just saying anyone who's committed a crime, kick them out of the country. Okay, it's the law, and since some of these people say under the law deport everybody, the law says that depending on the crime and depending what category it is, then there might be a waiver. If there is a waiver, then they can apply for it. If they apply for it, there's no guarantee they're going to get it, but they have the right to apply for it. That's because the law basically gives people opportunities to rectify mistakes that they've made in their past. Sometimes the waivers are denied. If they're denied and they went through the procedure and they end up getting deported, then they fought their case, they did the best they could, and at that point they end up getting deported. But in many cases, if they fight their cases and they win the waiver and the waiver's granted, then they get to stay here. And they get to stay here under the law, even though they committed a crime. So there's a whole plethora of types of waivers. There's waivers for crimes. There's waivers if you're going to be a public charge. There's waivers for fraud. There's waivers for medical conditions. There's waivers for people who are here and they need to leave and they need a 2-year foreign residency requirement. There's all kinds of waivers interlaced in the law that allows people who are inadmissible for a wide variety of reasons to fight their cases. So if new laws are to be passed, which essentially will say, okay, anyone who's committed a crime, no waivers available, deport them, then that'll be the law at that point. And then, this video will be irrelevant. But as it stands now, as the law stands now, there are all kinds of ways in immigration court, after you've been found removable, to then be able to get a waiver for whatever ground you're inadmissible. So hopefully I've explained that. Hopefully I've made it a bit more clear as to why you cannot just, blatantly say deport everybody who has a crime. Okay, so if you like the video, click like, subscribe. Go ahead and leave your comments, positive or negative, but or against or for. But do try to, if you're going to leave comments that have cuss words every other word, those will be deleted. But if you make, a opposition view, which is fine, of course, those will stay. And you're free to give the office a call for a consultation. I'll be happy to help. More on the coming videos.